The presenter for Tall Tree for Outstanding Citizen has been selected because he's known the recipient for more than 40 years through their shared academic and public service interests. Dean Tom Ehrlich's career has spanned a wide range of teaching, public service, and educational leadership positions. Tom Ehrlich has served as Dean of the Stanford Law School, about which more in a minute, President of Indiana University, Provost of the University of Pennsylvania. He was the first President of the Federal Legal Services Corporation under President Jimmy Carter from 2000 to 2010. He was Senior Scholar at the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching. He is currently a visiting professor at the Stanford School of Education. He has authored more than 13 books, including one he co-authored with our recipient 6 years ago on the relationships of foundations and education. His most recent book, What You Can Do for Your Country, Civic Work and Civic Lessons, was written with a Stanford undergraduate about how and why all people, particularly young people, should be involved in public service. What he didn't realize until tonight when I reminded him is that 40 years ago, when I was a Stanford undergraduate, I kind of felt I knew him because I had a student position on the Academic Senate and he was part of the Academic Senate. He actually found 15 minutes on his calendar to counsel me on whether I should attend the Stanford Law School, which he was running, or the Harvard Law School, which he had attended. And we spent a very cordial 10 or 12 minutes together. He asked me a lot of questions, tried to figure out what was going on, looked me straight in the eye and said, "Hal, I can figure out by looking at you that you're pretty much going to spend the rest of your life in California. This is your chance to go to the East Coast and learn something. Don't pass it up." The man who sent me to Harvard Law School, Dean Tom Ehrlich, is going to present the Tall Tree Award for Outstanding Citizen. Dean Ehrlich.
The only fallacy is I assumed he'd stay there. I am privileged to help honor Ray Bicchetti. As anyone who's been involved in higher education will attest, there is one thing that you want to avoid if you do intend to make friends or even keep those you have. Never, ever edit a collection of essays written by friends or those you would have as friends. Well, Ray violated this rule a few years ago when the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching was preparing to celebrate its centennial, and I suggested to Lee Shulman, the foundation president, that a book about foundations in education would be a good means to honor Carnegie's 100th birthday. Lee immediately agreed, and then it suddenly dawned on me that I really wanted to keep my friends and maybe even gain a few more. And I said I could take on that task only if Ray Bicchetti would join me as co-editor. Fortunately, Ray was naive about this narrow byway of academic life and was willing to join me. Lucky me. For whenever we needed to tell an author to rewrite her or his prose or even to reject a submission outright, I could say, well, you know, I really liked what you wrote, but my co-editor had a different view. So sorry as I am, you'll just have to rewrite that piece or even get used to the reality that we can't include it. And I knew I could say this with complete confidence that when the aggrieved writer called Ray in a rage, the call would end with the caller saying, "What a wonderful, wise guy that Ray Bicchetti is," which of course he is. I experienced that wisdom later on in my own career when I had my hand out for money, as I did for much of my professional life. Ray was then the education program officer at the Hewlett Foundation. Other program officers at other foundations all too often acted as though the money at their disposal was their money. and expected supplicants to grovel for funding. Many delighted in rejecting proposals with Delphic ambiguity, if not downright surliness, usually after months of silent delay. Not Ray. He would listen carefully to a proposal, ask searching questions, and then respond quickly, often right on the spot, with a yes or a no, or here's what you could do to make that proposal one the Hewlett Foundation will support. He was unfailingly not only kind in that process, but he was whip smart in strengthening a project, drawing on his remarkable career in both K-12 teaching and in higher education. And he always made clear that the funds that he was dispersing were not his money, but rather he was acting as trustee for a larger set of educational aims. After leaving Hewlett and Carnegie, Ray said he didn't know what he was going to do. But I knew he wasn't going to retire. Rather, he would find tasks that needed doing in our community, tasks that were often ones that others found too messy, too controversial, in short, too unpleasant. And then Ray would go out and do them. So, for example, he's been a volunteer for the Palo Alto Police Department. He served as co-chair of the Infrastructure Blue Ribbon Commission, appointed by the City Council. The list goes on and on and on. It's no accident that Ray pushed to make civic engagement for the common good one of the City Council's top priorities. And he doesn't stop his civic work at our own borders. As one illustration, Ray is a passionate theater goer and a board member of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. But more important than any of these activities, though reflected in all of them, Ray is a supremely nice guy. With Carol as his perfect partner at his side in his many adventures, Ray is the epitome of communal decency, the embodiment of civic virtue. He makes all of us, everyone, stand a little taller than we might otherwise have thought possible. How appropriate, then, to add to his many honors with this Tall Tree Award. Thank you.
Well, that's about the most generous introduction anybody could ever receive, and I hope to meet the guy that it was about someday. Thank you very much, Tom. If there's one big reason to volunteer, it's the people you meet. That group includes many of you in this room and others like you. Some are forces of nature, many are consummate professionals, most are ordinary, caring, generous, talented, and thoroughly decent people. And many are the people being benefited by the agencies one volunteers for. Volunteering at the police department is one of my special delights. I have great admiration for our police. They are well-trained, brave, and committed men and women. And they're not uptight. Once when I returned from taking a patrol car to the car wash, the officer supervising volunteers asked me where I'd been. I told her and asked why she wanted to know. Because, she replied, 911 got a call from a concerned citizen who thought the department ought to know that some old guy was driving a police car. 911 asked if the guy was wearing a red baseball cap. I do wear a Stanford cap when I'm volunteering there. The caller answered yes, so 911 said, it's okay, he's one of our guys. It's a great privilege to be one of their guys. A lot of what gets done in Palo Alto is done by nonprofits, a group of organizations that punch way above their weight, and we shouldn't take them for granted. Public funds still need to play a substantial role in sustaining and growing the services and organizations that make us a genuine community, one that narrows the gap of privilege by bringing up the condition of those less favored by circumstances. I've had a lot of opportunities to work with school, community college, and city leaders and staff. Some of the finest people I've known in my nearly 80 years are in that group. I haven't always agreed with them, but I continue to admire the extent to which they care about making our public entities enrich our lives, run well, prepare for the future, and serve the common good. A recent experience along those lines was working with Lee Levy, co-chairing the Infrastructure Blue Ribbon Commission. That 17-member commission had 16 men and 1 woman on it. I mention the gender distribution because I know from my education experience that when teachers get a start of school roster that's 94% boys, they tend to rethink their career choices. But thanks to excellent staff help and 14 months of persevering, we got the job done, and I'm grateful to them all. I want also to mention my colleagues in Project Safety Net, who work on mental health, suicide prevention, and the 41 developmental assets to benefit our children and youth. And my new colleagues on the Community Working Group and Peninsula Healthcare Connection, who do terrific work with and for the homeless. There are many more I'd like to call out, but the time limits designed to assure that we get home before dawn won't allow it. Those time limits will, however, allow me to acknowledge one who, for more than 56 years of marriage, has helped me think things through, urged me to stop and ask for directions instead of continuing driving, has managed our family, and in all ways been my companion and my love. Carol, my wife. To say that I'm grateful barely touches the depth of my feelings. Finally, to those who put this event together and worked to select this year's recipients, I want to say how proud and humbled I am to be in a group of past and present winners. When the word got out that I'd be a Tall Tree honoree, I told my friends that I consider myself a short but busy shrub. I plan to keep thinking of myself that way, but thanks for pouring some fertilizer on my roots.